6, 1968, our nation lost one of its greatest voices for justice. Senator and formerly Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy was murdered that night by Sirhan Sirhan here in Los Angeles at the Ambassador Hotel after winning the California presidential primary during the 1968 presidential race. Sirhan Sirhan then went through the justice system. He was convicted. He was actually sentenced to death. And several years later, the Supreme Court reversed the death penalty, and he was given a sentence of life with parole because the sentence of life without parole didn't exist at that time. Starting in the 1980s for the next 40 years, spanning 6 different district attorneys from Los Angeles County, who spanned from Democrats to Republicans, Sirhan Sirhan was up for parole 15 times. 15 out of 15 times, the DA's office sent a prosecutor to go with the victim's family, the family of Robert F. Kennedy, to the parole hearing where Sirhan Sirhan was seeking to get out of prison early. And 15 out of 15 times, with the DA's office in attendance, supporting the family, the parole board rejected parole for Sirhan Sirhan. But on the 16th time, George Gascon was the district attorney, and George Gascon decided not to send a prosecutor with the family of Robert F. Kennedy, to that parole hearing. And what the prosecutor gets to do, which is unlike anything that a victim family gets to do, is not only support them, but get access to the prison packet. And that's the packet that the parole board will actually review to see whether or not someone is eligible and qualifies for parole. Without the prosecutor there that time, they did not have access to the prison packet. And a 2-member parole board decided several years ago to grant parole for Sirhan Sirhan on his 16th time when George Gascon was the district attorney. Fortunately, the governor, Gavin Newsom, reversed that grant of parole, and Sirhan Sirhan remains in prison, and his last parole opportunity was also denied. Unfortunately, this is not a unique situation in Los Angeles County for victim families who have suffered the tragic murder of one of their relatives. Hundreds of families have had to confront their murderer at parole board hearings over the last several years with George Gascon as the district attorney, and had to do it without the assistance of a prosecutor because of George Gascon's blanket policy to prohibit his prosecutors to attend those parole hearings with the victims' families. That has to change. That has to change immediately. George Gascon has abandoned victims. He should be their champion. I will be their champion. When I become district attorney, one of my first actions will be to rescind George Gascon's policy on prohibiting prosecutors from attending parole hearings and ensure that those prosecutors actually not only attend the parole hearings, but work with the victims' families to get their voices heard by the parole board. That is the only fair notion. It's inexcusable for a district attorney to have adopted another policy. After all, the district attorney is involved in the investigation, the prosecution, and the trial of a murderer. The district attorney is involved in the sentencing of a murder. The district attorney is involved in the appeal or resentencing of a murder. Yet somehow, some way, DA Gascon views his responsibility as ending when that murderer seeks to get out of prison early. I couldn't disagree more. We are doing this press conference in front of the Hall of Justice, in front of George Gascon's office, where he makes the decisions not to send prosecutors to parole hearings, in order for him to hear loud and clear how erroneous, how harmful, how dangerous that policy is, and why it needs to stop. And since he has chosen not to stop that policy himself, we're going to have to stop it for him by voting him out of office bringing myself into office and having that policy reversed on day one. You know, last night I looked at the words of Robert F. Kennedy, and particular words sort of resonate that he said back in the 1960s. They resonate as much in 2024. He said, "Every society gets the criminal it deserves, but what is equally true is that every community gets the kind of law enforcement it insists on." We are here to insist on law enforcement and a DA's office to do its job. I am joined today by two of Robert F. Kennedy's children, Max and Rory Kennedy, and they have had the courage throughout their whole life to continue the legacy of their father, to fight for justice, and as importantly, point out when injustice is occurring in our society, not just for them, but for everyone in society. So I'd like to right now turn to Max Kennedy for a few remarks. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Well, actually, we'll bring up both Max Kennedy and Rory Kennedy for a few remarks.
Nathan, thank you so much. It's such an honor for us both to be here. And it's also a very difficult day. This is the first time that we've ever supported a candidate against a Democrat. And the reason we're here is because Gascon's policies are failing Los Angeles. And the crime wave that is occurring is entirely the fault of District Attorney Gascon. We need a change. We need a district attorney who will stand up for crime victims. We need the most basic job of government is to protect the people who live under its rule. And this guy has utterly failed to protect the people of Los Angeles. We're standing here with some of the most beautiful people in the world. Each of these mothers has lost a child, and they have to go and face the court system alone, without the support of the district attorney, without the government on their side. And that is dead wrong. We need to stop that in Los Angeles. We need a new voice, a new face. We have Nathan Hochman here who cares about the people. He wants to put the criminals in jail and keep them in jail. And he cares deeply about all of us and everyone here. And that is why we need him in the district attorney's office.
Very well said, Max. Thank you. I'm here today because George Gascon has failed to stand up for crime victims. He has failed to keep the people of Los Angeles County safe. He is not qualified to be the district attorney. Gascon prohibits his prosecutors from filing charges they believe are appropriate. He boycotts parole hearings and leaves grieving victims to fend for themselves. A lot has been written about Gascon's questionable policies. My family and I have lived through them. Gascon has shown time and again that he has more empathy for criminals than he does for their victims. I will be voting for Nathan Hochman for district attorney, and I encourage all residents of Los Angeles County to do the same. We're not doing this simply because we think Gascon is unfit for office, which we do. We're doing this because we're very impressed with Nathan. Nathan will make an excellent district attorney and will help pull Los Angeles out of its downward spiral. Nathan is a man of integrity and a great leader. He's an experienced prosecutor who will advocate for victims and make LA County a safer place to live. I am proud to stand by him today and say he has my full support to become the next district attorney of Los Angeles County. There you are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nathan.
Well, I am humbled by the endorsement, the support, and the words of Max and Rory. It really is it's an honor to sort of be part of your legacy for fighting for justice, a legacy that starts and certainly will not stop with your father. You know, George Gascon is not running on his experience because he has none. He's never personally prosecuted or defended a criminal case in his life. And he can't compare that to the 34 years of criminal justice experience that I have. He's not running on his record because it's a failed record, with violent crime and property crime skyrocketing over the years he has been in office. So what George Gascon is doing is trying to do the opposite of what Robert F. Kennedy was trying to do for this nation. Robert F. Kennedy was all about unifying people, bringing people together for a common mission. George Gascon's political strategy now is to divide people. He hopes to divide Democrats versus Republicans versus independents. He hopes to single out certain groups against another groups and pit those groups against each other. I couldn't disagree with that political strategy even more. My job is to unify people, to unify Democrats, Republicans, independents, people across the geographic, demographic, and political lines, and bring them all together in pursuit of the common mission of justice, of holding people accountable, but focusing as much on community empowerment and making sure people don't get into the criminal justice system to begin with. And if they do, and they have to go to prison, make sure they get skill sets while they're in prison so that when they come out, they don't go back into the criminal justice system. I call that the before, the during, and the after rule of the DA, and George Gascon just doesn't get it. So again, I will conclude with the remarks of Robert F. Kennedy because he speaks to us over 50 years later in times that he was dealing in the 1960s, and his words are as applicable in 2024. All of us might wish at times that we lived in a more tranquil world, but we don't. And if our times are difficult and perplexing, so are they challenging and filled with opportunity. We have an opportunity in this race to end the golden age of criminals and begin and watch the dawn of the golden age of Los Angeles County. The people here today are part of the army that is going to make that happen. I seek your support as well to join us to make Los Angeles golden yet again. Thank you very much. We will take questions on a one-on-one basis after this. So again, I thank again Rory and Max so much for their endorsements, for their support. Vicky, Max's wife, thank you very much. Vicky, very much appreciated. And everyone who came out today, thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your encouragement. We will take that energy all the way to November 5th. And defeat George Gascon in the general election. We can all now wave goodbye to George Gascon in his office. Bye, George.
Bye.
The clock is ticking, George. Thank you very much.